Hey, are you the type of horror fan who likes your films on the cheap? Do you like movies on the more experimental side? Or maybe even places that don't even speak English? Well, I'm here to tell you that this might be the place for you then. Let's start binging. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Low Budget Binge is where we venture down the path less traveled and look at low budget, no budget, and sometimes international films that never get that top billing you see with the usual Hollywood fare. I'll indicate in the review down below where you can find these films along with their trailers. Here we go. The Rise of the Beast is new on demand and digital download from UNcork'd Entertainment. It's directed by Jack Ayers and written by Max Brooks. A group of environmentalist activists break into a corporate research facility in order to expose them for the cruel and illegal testing on animals. But they have no idea the horrors they will see when they encounter an escaped ape-human hybrid rampaging through the facility and forest area surrounding it. If you squint at it, this is kind of a Bigfoot movie. It's got a giant hairy beast running rampant through the forests and attacking people it encounters. But in actuality, The Rise of the Beast is a film about an experiment created by mad science coming back to bite the hands that created it, and any other hands in the near vicinity. The Rise of the Beast is by no means a good movie, but there is something that elevates this film above what one usually finds in these lower-tier creature features. That elevating factor seems to be a script written by Max Brooks. Yes, that Max Brooks, the son of Mel Brooks, who wrote World War Z. I guess this might be some kind of early script sold by Brooks, as it's not his best work, but at least the premise is solid, and the narrative has a few twists and turns along the way that are somewhat sophisticated. So Brooks's talented pen work does show up under all of that lo-fi filmmaking. I guess Max Brooks got to eat after all, and I hope this film paid a couple of bills. But an okay story doesn't save a film from dodgy CGI. The monstrous ape looks okay in stills, but basically feels like it floats in the frame with very little weight to the construct. The monster isn't terrible looking. It's basically just a big monkey slapping people around. There's a nice amount of carnage shown from these attacks, and the massive ape passes on a disease that makes others more animalistic and ape-like. So there is a body horror element to this film that arises. These practical effects are much better than the CG, making these threats feel much more, well, threatening. All in all, I didn't hate The Rise of the Beast. It's a monkey on the loose movie with some mad science tossed in, some okay acting, and shoddy CG. It's a time waster of a movie that you'll most likely forget about soon after viewing, but despite its blandness, it still is a capable movie. Brooks' writing shines through in moments, making it easier to watch than most films of this ilk. They Crawl Beneath, aka It Crawls Beneath, is new on Blu-ray and DVD from Wellgo USA. It's directed by Dale Fabrigar and written by Tricia Aurand. Police officer Danny, played by Joseph Almani, is trying to enjoy the weekend with his Uncle Bill, played by Michael Paré, by drinking a few beers, working on an antique car, and just relaxing. But when an earthquake rumbles through the town, it opens a fissure, releasing a bizarre new species of worm thingies with sharp teeth and a highly poisonous bite. Pinned under the car they were working on, and bitten by the worms, Danny must somehow get out and to a hospital if he is to survive. While the wormy threat is a little too much like Tremors for my comfort, They Crawl Beneath works because it never tries to be bigger than what its budget can afford. It manages to keep the suspense and threat going by keeping the action contained within basically one location. Danny spends much of the entire movie in the garage, pinned under a car, using his wits to get out of this predicament and take on these slimy beasties crawling around him. And while it isn't Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward hopping roofs and rocks to avoid graboids and giant sandworms, it does manage to focus on the little things and makes it entertaining for a feature-length jaunt. The effects are really impressive, mainly practical. The effects are practically quaint to see in action, as a lot of the worm creatures are just toothy-looking hand puppets. There isn't much more effects than that, but these wormy creatures are effectively creepy and pose quite the threat to our trapped hero. The acting is above par for this type of movie. Almani carries the film on his own for the most part, and does so with charm and wit. He keeps his humor while pinned in this impossible situation, and the actor makes for a likable protagonist. Carly Eldridge is decent as Danny's estranged girlfriend, and Michael Paré continues to show that he still has the chops when the script allows for it. While a lot of the additional drama involving Danny's parental turmoil gets drawn out, They Crawl Beneath is a good example of a film whose goals are never beyond its budgetary reach. There's a lot of bang for your buck in this lo-fi creature feature. I wish more films would take note on how this one was put together. The Harbinger is new on demand from XYZ Films. It's directed and written by Andy Mitton. Mavis, played by Emily Davis, has been plagued by dreams, and though the pandemic lockdown is at its peak, she reaches out to her college friend, Monique, played by Gabby Beans, to come visit her to help her through this hard time. Monique arrives to find Mavis in pretty bad shape. At first, Monique hopes to guide Mavis to some online counseling, but soon Monique begins having the same nightmares about a man in a plague doctor mask terrorizing her from the shadows. Now both Mavis and Monique must do everything they can to find out what this monster in their dreams means and how to stop him. Kind of how every shark movie is reminiscent of Jaws and every possession movie steers back to The Exorcist, any movie that involves a man tormenting someone in their nightmares is going to feel an awful like a rejected script for a Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I don't know if The Harbinger was one of those, but with a little cutting and pasting, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that either borrows, elaborates, or modernizes the core premise of Wes Craven's classic. But while the Nightmare series becomes focused on Freddy, The Harbinger makes things much more about a personal tale about two very close friends. So while the spotlight is on the different nightmares the protagonists are experiencing, The Harbinger tells a much more intimate story between two friends. Setting The Harbinger during the pandemic also shifts the way this film is going to be taken in. It's definitely going to be a movie some are not ready for. There are moments that indeed feel like they have been reenacted too soon, involving social distancing, masking up, and all of the questions everyone had during those months we were all cooped up in our own places. But while this definitely is a pandemic movie, the threat the characters encounter is the existential question of becoming non-existent in a world without contact with one another. The main power of The Harbinger is to take one's psyche apart piece by piece until there's nothing left, erasing all traces of that person from the world as if they never existed. It taps into that isolation we all felt during the pandemic, as if nothing mattered and we were living in some dreamtime void. These are some pretty heavy themes to put out there, much heavier than a knife-gloved boogeyman. So while some might not appreciate the journey into the worst days of the pandemic, at least The Harbinger deals with some deep metaphors brought on by the experience in a smart and somewhat entertaining way. So there's going to be a been there, done that vibe to The Harbinger all around, with it being reminiscent of A Nightmare on Elm Street and the pandemic lockdown. If you can get over that, you might enjoy this one. It's got some pretty harrowing nightmare sequences, and the acting is very strong from pretty much the entire cast. I rolled my eyes when I started seeing the masks and the social distancing at first, but eventually I got into The Harbinger's story. It definitely elaborates on that dreadful feeling of fading away. That's a universal paranoia that we all fear in our own way, and The Harbinger taps into this fear quite effectively. Presence is directed by Christian Schultz and Thomas Johnston. It's written by Peter Ambrosio and Christian Schultz. Jennifer, played by Jenna Ling Adams, is a fashion designer specializing in detailed zippers living in New York with her ex-boyfriend. It's been weeks since she has heard from her best friend Samantha, played by Alexandria DeBerry, and Jennifer longs to find out where she is. Jennifer is mentally unstable and on the brink of a nervous breakdown, but is relieved when Samantha finally calls her and invites her to a luxurious yacht to take part in a lucrative business deal with a wealthy clothing manufacturer named David, played by Dave Davis. Once on the yacht and out to sea, Jennifer begins to have mental issues once again, complaining that there's some kind of dark presence inside of her, and then the knives on the boat start going missing. Bad stuff happens after that. Presence is a slow descent into madness by inches. It takes its sweet-ass time introducing us to Jennifer, Samantha, and David, who all end up trapped together on a yacht in the middle of the ocean. While directors Christian Schultz and Thomas Johnston make the scenery look gorgeous and the setting look extravagant, it doesn't help the pacing of this very slow movie. The fault is not on the actors. Jenna Ling Adams has a strong presence on the screen. She goes through some complex emotions and conveys them quite skillfully. Alexandria DeBerry and David Davis are also great here. DeBerry recognizes this self-destructive behavior Jennifer is going through, yet still tries to be supportive to her best friend. Davis plays an arrogant businessman, but shows an understanding of Jennifer's plight that makes him more than just a cliched rich guy. All three actors involved in this dark play do a great job with the story they have. The problem is that there really isn't anything new to see in Presence. Jennifer receives a strange necklace at the beginning, and that has something to do with her blackouts, and it's pretty obvious what's going on very early on, with Jennifer never remembering huge chunks of time and people and cutlery going missing in the interim. It's only the cast that doesn't have a clue, but we're made privy with some ominous scenes of a shadow in the background just before Jennifer goes on one of her episodes. That gives the directors the ominous task of filling in where the story is lagging, with long silences of people wandering around the boat, staring into the ocean, lounging on the deck, and dancing around to music from the soundtrack. It makes the story feel like it's being padded, and the wait for something to actually happen during the climax feels pretty excruciating. The relationship between Jennifer and Samantha is also too vaguely communicated. At first it seems Jennifer is more than just friends with Samantha. It seems she might be in love with her best friend. But once we catch up with Samantha, it appears they're just friends, though there still is some tension whenever David and Samantha are being intimate. While I don't really have an issue with the ambiguity of Jennifer and Samantha's relationship, the film fails to come up with any kind of satisfying conclusion to the situation. Since this seems to be a strong issue with Jennifer's unstable mindset, I think more attention should have been given to this plot point, and some kind of resolution should have been come to by the end. It wasn't. The ending is suspenseful, if not somewhat confounding. An awful lot had to happen in order for this sequence of events to unfold, and while they aren't outside the realm of possibility, it still feels like some stretching has to be done in order to have it all make sense. The ambiguity and artsy way things are wrapped up doesn't help. In the end, I recommend Presence for its strong performances, but the story feels like it would have made for a much better short film than the padded feature we got. The directors and cast were able to convey a strong sense of dread, and once the pace amps up in the last half hour, Presence works. Just be ready for a long wait to get there. Shadows is new on demand from Redwater Entertainment. It's directed by Carlo Lavagna and written by Damiano, Bruè, Fabio Mollo, and Vanessa Picciarelli. Alma, played by Mia Triplehorn, and her sister Alex, played by Lola Pettigrew, live in an abandoned hotel in the middle of a thick forest. Their mother, played by Saskia Reeves, is cautious and overprotective, fearful of the sun and the land off the property of the hotel grounds. Alma and Alex are allowed out during the nighttime, but are warned that the sun causes people to pop. And that's not the only dangers to be found in the surrounding woods. But as Alma and Alex grow closer to adulthood, their urge to test boundaries intensifies, and the outside world threatens to break the strict rules of Mother. Shadows is a story of parenthood taken to the nth degree. Mother is fearful that everything will hurt those who she holds dear to her, and tells tales of all kinds of horrors that come out during the daytime. Alma believes her, but the rambunctious Alex is less gullible and longs to see what is out there. While this film takes place after some catastrophic event, at its emotional core, it's a story of how all parents try their best to protect their children. It's also about paranoia, loneliness, and desperation, themes that are often explored in these post-apocalyptic tales, but few done so much careful emotional attention as Shadows does. The emotional strength comes from the powerful acting put forth by the two leading ladies, Mia Triplehorn and Lola Pettigrew, who deliver heart-wrenching performances as Alma and Alex. Their close relationship seems to be the only thing keeping their minds intact in this strict and confining environment. While the cause of the horrors outside and what exactly those horrors are prove to be unclear, what is evident is the two girls' desire to see what is out there in the world for themselves. It's a classic tale of rebellion that occurs anytime teenagers are mixed with the rules, and Triplehorn and Pettigrew intricately illustrate those complex emotions of weighing caution with curiosity. I guarantee we will not see the last of these two young actresses. Their opposition, Mother, holds her secrets close to her, and Saskia Reeves is able to convey manic overprotectiveness one minute and tender care in the next in a complex role that will make you love and hate her, yet still understand her actions. Shadows is heavy on the drama. It's a coming-of-age story set in a paranoid and apocalyptic situation where survival is the main goal of all. While it was most definitely made on a tight budget, with a three-person cast, the film packs a lot of dramatic power along with a heavy sense of dread and paranoia. While I found the ending to be pretty easy to guess, given clues peppered throughout the story and the fact that I've seen 1,000,001 films of this sort, I still enjoyed the trek through Shadows and recommend it for those who like the terror's subtle, emotional, and psychological. Finally, we have Vietnamese Horror Story, aka Chien Ma Gan Nha. It's streaming on Screambox. It's directed and written by Tran Hu Tan. Four Vietnamese kids get together for dinner, and then the lights go out due to a storm. The group decides to pass the time by telling a trio of horror stories with deep roots in Vietnamese legend and lore. One tells a tale of an inspiring actress and the sacrifices she goes through in order to attain fame. Another follows a young man who works as a street magician, taking care of his elderly father and haunted by spirits. The third and final story follows a young spiritualist who is approached by a couple to help find the remains of their long-dead relative. Vietnamese Horror Story, which is kind of a misleading title and should really have been called Vietnamese Horror Stories, since this is an anthology, is supposed to be a huge sensation in Vietnam. I can understand why. It embraces old traditions and customs and modernizes it and even Americanizes it for a new audience. My favorite part of the film was finding out the intricate and deeply soulful rituals the culture takes part in to honor their dead. If there is anything I can take from this film, it's that I understand that the dead are deeply respected and honored in that land. Unfortunately, Vietnamese Horror Story chooses to ape some of the worst aspects of Western horror. The film definitely shines when it builds tension and lays out a heavy feeling of dread, but the number of jump scares really took me out of the film. While most of them are legit scares and not false starts like a cat jumping through a window, the film relies too much on a loud burst of music and something coming right at you. While the horrors vary in size and shape, this technique is used by most of them in every story. It's one of my least favorite aspects of American horror films, and Vietnamese Horror Story is unfortunately riddled with it. That said, I did really like all three stories. While the first story is the most clearly and plainly told, the second and third require real attention to detail in order to really get it, especially the third tale, which proved to be my favorite, as it is both a heart-wrenching drama as well as a terrifying ghost story. Each tale has a twist, with only one of them I found to be predictable. In terms of story, all three really do a great job of being different, unique, and fun. There's also quite a lot of gore. Seems beheadings are the flavor of the day in Vietnamese culture, as there are a whole lot of headless bodies shambling about and lunging for you here. There is also a few creepy smiling kids, the obligatory ghost girl with hair draped over her eyes, and a monster with an eye in the palm of his hand and a mouth in the other, reminiscent of Pan's Labyrinth's iconic Pale Man. Paired with some incense burning and all of the altars, it makes for an interesting and haunted experience with some nice goppy gore to satiate the blood fiends out there. Anthologies are rarely as strong as this one in terms of strength of story and production levels. This is no collection of shorts cheaply thread together with a loose premise. Everything looks good and feels authentic. The acting is on point, though no one delivered an over-the-top or film-stealing performance. All in all, while there is an over-reliance on the jump scare, Vietnamese Horror Story stands as a quality representation of cultural horror from overseas.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside